So, provided we're actually live, we can, after all, try to do a little surprising test out stream. There was a comment on my YouTube channel today by Volvo B10M asking about a weird behavior of the GP38-2 on the Horseshoe curve, and later he added that it is not only happening on the Horseshoe curve but all through the game. And well, I thought, let's look into it, and why not do this on the stream so that we can actually discuss it either live or when watching it afterwards. Maybe we can find out what the problem is here. So it will be Horseshoe curve and a service with a GP38-2, and he said the 13V means I have to adjust my service indicator here. DLC's Horseshoe curve services. The name of the service, I can actually show it as it is at the moment. Enola to Conway. That means we are running the train up the hill after the Horseshoe curve. Yeah, it actually carried over. Now I only have to get it into a position where it can stay. Like this. Okay. It is a service with 5 GP. Oh, that is a sweet picture. I have not seen this before. Dantec Manify. He always has really good screenshots. Oh, he caught the reflection. That's amazing. Yeah, what I was trying to say, we have a service with 5 of those locomotives. If we look at it from the outside, 3 at the front and 2 at the rear. And in the middle we have subtract the 530 box cars, giving us a train of 3.3 thousand tons, or is quite a word. If we want to run this consist, what would we do? Probably check where those trailing locomotives are set to. Handle off, that is good. Radio fuse is on, at least, well, that is the last one. That is not so important. That to have it on actually should be off. Number light should be on the last one, and the lights probably to dim, so that we have some lights on the back. Ditch lights probably not. Reverser is not in on the last one. This is off all the time. Handle is off. Trail, and then probably we want to have the loco not listening to our commands, because only the leading one on the rear is supposed to listen to our commands. Let's keep it back, or let's get it back into our heads that the game is actually simulating a second engineer that runs the first one of the trailing, or the locomotives at the end, the leading one at the rear, so to say. It will have, but this will happen automatically, the reverse in, and those things turned on. The brake setup For the independent brake, I like to have it on lead at the leading one at the rear. But this is necessary to have the automatic brake handle off and cut out so that it does not interfere. It needs to have the radio fuse on. No lumber lights here on this one. And we can have the camera here so that we can see what this locomotive is doing. At the moment the brake cylinders are at 0. What it is a bit weird because actually they should be applied probably. Brake pipe is not full, but the main reservoir is. And our leading one, to the contrary, reservoir is full, brake pipe is not full, neither the equalizing reservoir, and we have no air in the brake cylinders. That is a bit weird actually. Reverser in. These 2 or 3 switches need to be on obviously because it's the leading one. Lead on the independent brake and at the same time apply it. Now we are getting pressure in the brake cylinder. Then we want to cut in so that we can handle it with the or operate the brake pipe with our brake valve handle here. We need number lights at the front. We need the radio fuse on so that we can radio our commands back to the engineer on the leading rear. And then we want our warning devices. Warning devices obviously only on the leading locomotive, because otherwise nobody will be able to press the button. Bright lights at the front, probably ditch lights already on. When we're leaving the yard, maybe we should turn them on later, but can't hurt, so we cannot forget that we actually need the ditch lights. And then, yeah, well, the thing with the banking COMM. To simulate commanding the engineer on the leading rear, we usually turn on the banking COMM. So what happens on the rear? Yeah, it reacted. The not visible engineer put in the reverser so that this locomotive is actually working. Those 3 switches are on because this command stand is actually issuing commands, but for whatever reason the automatic brake valve is cut out and the initial reduction setting is selected now. Don't know why. And we have now brake cylinder pressure according to this setting here. What happens on the trailing locomotive at the front? Actually, what we would expect is to have brake cylinder pressure according to the setting of the independent brake, because those 3 locomotives are interconnected, and since it is set to trail, it should actually copy the setting of the independent brake valve handle, but it doesn't. It has the automatic brake handle to handle off, what is good, and the valve to cut out. No lights here, those switches are off, and the reverser handle is not in. That makes sense. Back in our leading one, we can see the signals. The signals are position light signals of the X-Conrail signaling system. That means that we have here 2 ascending on the dwarf, that is yellow over yellow. What in my understanding, if I did not forget it in the meantime, means approach slow. HUD is giving us a 50, we have to approach slow. Slow is 15. Brake pipe at the rear is 64. Brake pipe at the front is 64 as well. So we have set it to freight on our leading one. Let's release it and see what happens. The independent brake is still on to hold the train in place. So equalizing reservoir climbs to the 90. The brake pipe is at 80. At the back at 82. And for whatever reason, the brake pipe does not follow our equalizing reservoir here. So what does it do on the trailing at the front? The equalizing reservoir here is at 62, which should be totally irrelevant because it is cut out here. And the brake pipe stalls at 80. So let's see what happens. Well, the handle off is actually good. The leading one at the rear has it on initial reduction for whatever reason. Let's try to get them released. And funny enough, the 20 pounds or the 10 pounds, whatever was in the brake cylinder here, goes out the cylinder, even though this valve is cut out. Should not have any influence on our brake pipe. Well, whatever. We've released it, we put it to handle off. Interestingly enough, now if we put it into service, it is working again. It's actually applying even though it is cut out. Don't think... If I put it into emergency, that is correct. Even with cut out, putting any handle in emergency would probably drain the brake pipe. Now we've drained it completely. We have to see what happens. Maybe this is already one part of the problem that Volvo B10M actually announced. We have no pressure in our brake pipe at the moment. We don't see any PCS switch shot, even though we don't see any PCS indicator. On this one not, on this one not. We are not getting our brake pipe refilled. Not even the emergency reservoir. Let's maybe try the procedure for releasing an emergency brake application that opened the PC switch. For that we have to either move it to suppression or emergency, depends on the machine, and wait for 60 or 90 seconds before we move it again. Well, we can't see the indicator coming off. I keep it in suppression now, 30. Let's wait until 31:30 maybe, and see if we can get some air back into our brake pipe then. Because at the moment there is no point in starting the train. Here the equalizing reservoir is at 40, here it is at 62, and at the leading we are at 0. And that was what resulted from the cut-out brake valve on the leading rear going into emergency. Now we've waited 90 seconds in suppression. Can't release it. Doesn't do anything here. What happens if I release it on the locomotive where I actually initiated it? Even though the valve is cut out, releasing the brakes here fills the equalizing reservoir to 90, and the brake pipe is slowly filling too. Whereas on the lead locomotive, the equalizing reservoir is still at 0 and the brake pipe is filling slowly from the rear. That is really an interesting behavior. So my brake pipe is filling from the rear, while the equalizing reservoir on the leading locomotive stays at 0. That is the trailing at the front, the first trailing at the front. Here the equalizing reservoir stays at 62. Brake pipe is filling. And this was our culprit locomotive, the leading one in the rear. Filling obviously our brake pipe from the rear now, even though the valve is cut out. It's handle off, we're still applying. So we need to have the cut out brake valve handle in release to get air into our brake pipe. Well, it will be interesting when we actually got our brake pipe inflated, whether we can start this train with an empty equalizing reservoir at the front. At the rear it says 52 and 52 at the front. Trailing does not copy independent brake setting. Well, there is no end to the weird effects that you can have on multi-loco consists. Still, the equalizing reservoir here is at 0. The main reservoir is also not full. It is only at 130. Not even a fuse for the compressor. So now it seems... No, it is still climbing. Or is it not climbing? It is back at 62. The brake pipe pressure here. Also at 62. And here is the brake pipe pressure climbing almost to the 90. At the rear end. Well, the front end is the rear end now. Maybe it will actually go to the 90 eventually. cutting in, cutting out. For whatever reason, the brake pipe pressure is falling again. Aha! Bye. Somehow the game seems to ping the control around throughout the train. If I cut it out, I get air into the brake pipe. If I cut it in, we're losing it again. Now it is really cut out. Or is it not? Extremely weird behavior. Now it handed over control to the cutout valve on the first trailing at the front. Okay. Apart from that, I'm not drawing any power. The handle is out again. Also interesting behavior here. Well, brake pipe is empty now, but nevertheless we should get power here. Well, I've completely messed it up now. Let's look at this again. Without activating an emergency brake application. So what would we do here? First, activate our locomotive at the front. Have some lights. Independent brake. Automatic brake. And release it. At least this fills the brake pipe, releases the automatic brake. Warning devices, radio is on already. Number lights. Number lights, headlights bright, ditch lights for the front. First trailing, no reverser handle, switches off, no lights, independent trail, release, cut out, handle off. Looks good. Radio switch should be off. Otherwise we cannot really distinguish what locomotive should be controlled. But I think this will not interfere. Leading on the rear, so far it is off. This will change as soon as we activate the banking COMM. I will keep it at the trail here, so we're not using the independent brake on the rear locomotives. Handle off, cut out. And then we need some lights on the last one, the trailing at the rear. Dim is enough, no ditch, but the number lights should be on. Well, just leave it open, so what we can see. No worries. It's the wrong one. We need to see the leading one, if it applies power and stuff. Okay, equalizing reservoir stays at 62, it's okay, but the brake pipe is filling throughout the whole train. Now let's not put the reverser into forward, have the throttle at idle, and try to switch on the banking COMM. Banking COMM is on. On the trailing at the front we still have no reverser handle. And yes, with activating the banking COMM, the script put in the reverser handle, but at the same time set this automatic brake handle to initial reduction for whatever reason, and at the same time the automatic brakes are actually applied accordingly to the initial reduction, even though the cutout valve is cut out. So moving this handle should not have any effect at all unless we put it into emergency. Still it does. So the script for turning on the banking COMM is probably flawed. What I want to do is to release the automatic brake here so that it does not interfere. Actually, I would put it to handle off, but I don't want to put it into emergency again. Leading loco, we have still the approach slow signal, that means we can go. Reverser to forward. Let's check if the leading rear followed suit. And for whatever reason, it got removed again. So we probably will not get anything here. So if I apply some power, we're not getting any power on the leading rear. We're getting on the trailing front power, and we're getting it on our leading locomotive. Probably because I moved the brake handle here. Put it back to neutral, throttle to idle. And let's see if I can do this again. Banking COMM off, banking COMM on. It moved my automatic brake handle back into initial reduction, but did not put in any reverser handle here. Same thing again. Again it moves around my brake handle, but no reverser. Now it got a reverser handle. Let's see if it works now. If we are drawing power on the rear locomotive, if the banking COMM works. Interesting. If I put the reverser to neutral, I have a reverser handle. And if I put it to forward, it now it disappeared, and now I put it to forward. Now it is here. So this is obviously the faces are moved here. Let's see what happens if I apply power. And now I'm getting power on the rear one. Now the banking is working, the banking COMM. So our imagined engineer on the rear is actually following suit. So I have power at the front. I have power on the trailing front. And I'm drawing power on the leading at the rear. Still initial reduction. Now I release it. And now actually the train brakes are releasing completely. I'm still having the independent on. This is why I have brake cylinder pressure on my leading loco. For whatever reason I do not have brake cylinder pressure on the front trailing, even though it should actually comply with the first loco. And if I release the independent brake, I'm losing the brake cylinder pressure here. Brake pipe is full, brakes release, and we're actually going. Well, let's see if what Volvo B10M said actually happens. At 26 or 27 miles per hour, the locomotive cuts out for him, applies brakes, and it cannot be released anymore. Since we are approaching slow, I will just keep the speed at slow speed, what is 15. Speed limit here is 25 for freight trains anyway. But by turning on the banking COMM fiddles with the automatic brake handle, that then actually actuates the brakes even though the brake handle is cut off. And this weird play between the reverser and the banking COMM button. Well, it more or less all centers around the switch, or the switch around the script that is activated when trying to turn on the banking COMM. On sandpatch grade, you had to configure the leading rear on your own, had to put in the reverser handle, switch on the switches, engine run, fuel pump, and so on, generator field, those three. Now there is a script for doing this. And this script does a lot of weird things, like applying the brakes to initial application on a cut-out brake valve. Signal ahead is a red over a yellow in position light, being, if I'm not mistaken, a slow approach, telling us do not go faster than slow speed. This is why we got an approach slow on the signal before, not faster than 15, so probably we're going across the switch at the front, and then we prepare to stop at the next signal. As soon as we are through the switches, we are usually allowed to go back to medium speed, what is 30. But still be prepared to stop at the next signal. Now we're getting actually in the gradient proper already, 1.5. Still saying 15, probably the train is still on the switch. Yeah. Since we are running under approach conditions, I should have an eye on the road. Line speed is climbing to 35 at this point. Signals that are up ahead are from behind. So, train is through the switches. We can accelerate to 25, it says. Because the rear end still has to pass the speed sign. Signals allow 30. So 25 I guess it is. If we are actually able to accelerate that much. We have 5 GP38-2s, that means we have 10,000 horsepower to move the 3,300 tons. That is not really plenty. Now the rear end has passed the speed board, increasing line speed to 35, but we are still running under approach condition, so we are limited to 30, and be prepared to stop at the next signal. Unfortunately, I do not know where the next signal is. Otherwise I could prepare better. There is a bridge. Are there signals on this bridge? I guess there are. And it is giving us a green. So the signals must have cleared in the meantime. Even though we are prepared to stop at this signal, we are good to go. That means full throttle. All the locomotives are pitching in. Gradient 1.9. Let's see if we can accelerate a bit here. So if I remember correctly, one workaround to negate the adverse effects of the Banking COMM script is to hit the Banking COMM button at the very first when you get into the service, without changing anything else. This is maybe the way to do it, so that the script does not get confused. Aha! And here is actually our stop. What Volvo B10M said. I did not get to the 26, 27, but I actually got a stop. It drained the equalizing reservoir. The brake pipe for some reason is not following suit. But the brakes are applying nevertheless. throughout. We have okay, I think we have found the problem. What happened here? We have, for whatever reason, the warning devices and I heard it on this locomotive here, on the trailing one. So if the warning devices are on any trailing locomotive, then we will by force get a penalty break at some time. But the equalizing reservoir got drained on our leading locomotive, right? So maybe it actually got actuated here, and the problem might be that the alerter does not really give a warning before intervening. We should try to do this again. Interestingly, the brake pipe is not drained. The equalizing reservoir is drained, but the brake pipe not. And brakes are applied on the second locomotive. Brakes are not applied on the rear one. And brakes are applied here at front. So what I can do, I can bail off the brakes here. That bails off the brakes on the trailing one as well. But most probably the brakes on the cars are still on. Even though my cutout brake valve here releases it and fills the brake pipe again. The equalizing reservoir here. And now the train rolls backwards. That means we have. Is the independent brake enough to stop it? It is not. My brake valve here, it is cut out, so it is not possible to apply any brake power. I cannot control it with my leading locomotive, but with the trailing one I can actually apply brakes. But not on the whole train, only on the leading on the trailing locomotive itself. What happens if I yank it into emergency? Still nothing. No, now it happens. Now it actually drains. My brake pipe. Okay, after putting it into emergency, I can fill my equalizing reservoir here again. The brake pipe is filling. Brake cylinders are already almost empty here. I have the independent on, but unfortunately only on the leading loco. That means I will try to apply some traction force. What works. See if we can get this train rolling again in the gradient when the brakes release. Brake pipe is almost full. Brake cylinders are empty. So at least one question, Volvo, how to get it going again. Seems to have to do something with putting the brake handle into emergency and back again to refill the equalizing reservoir at the front here. To get out of this weird situation that you have a drained equalizing reservoir and still a partially filled brake pipe. Now the brake pipe is full again, all the brake cylinders are empty. At least according to the indicators we are not getting wheel slip. Well, when pressing those indicators here they should actually light up, but they don't. I don't think this means all of them are broken. So let's just turn the warning devices, that is the alerter, off. And let's see if we're getting this problem again. Maybe this is actually simply a problem with the alerter warning sound not being audible here. Because it is playing on in the wrong locomotive. Because if I was not mistaken, I have to rewatch it on the stream. I heard the alerter sound here on the second locomotive, not at the front one. So maybe I just leave the hand off the alerter reset stick. 35. Now also for the passenger trains. Signals are green. Speed limit is 35 for freight and 44 for passengers. So far, having left the hand away from the alerter stick, we did not get a penalty brake. Since the alerter has been switched off. This for quite some time now. For once we can enjoy the famous horseshoe curve right in front of us. Signal is green. Speed is 35 for freight trains. This is where people are taking pictures. Now we have 2.9 miles to Galitzin. Test it. Oh! Now we've got someone to join us. But he's not here. Let's turn on the alerter back again. And not activate it. Not reset the alerter button. See what happens. Or exactly like now I activated for the last time, and now from 56 and 30 seconds we let it run. Typically it should activate an alarm after like 60 or 90 seconds and then activate the brakes if we don't reset it or move any control. some locomotives there is a light too that starts flashing. I don't think it is on this locomotive here. Signals for us are green, what is good. One minute, meaning 60 seconds in. I can't hear no alarm. Alright. And at about 65 seconds it kicked in. So this is most probably the alerter kicking in, or more concise, the P2A, I think it is called, P2A valve that drains the emergency reservoir to initiate an emergency brake if the alerter is not reset. The problem is that we do not have any audible alarm here. You hear the alarm on the second locomotive here, right? This is the first trailing. Here we can hear the alerter alarm. Okay, we can hear it outside the cab. Here, that's us. We can hear the alerter outside the cab, but not inside the cab. So that is most probably your problem, Volvo, that the locomotive does not play an audible alerter alarm inside the cab, only outside. How can we reset it? Well, let's go back with the throttle. Nevertheless, we are not getting a PCS indicator light here, so even though as soon as the P2A valve is actuated and drains the emergency reservoir, it should activate the PCS, the pneumatic control switch. This indicator light should go on, and then throttle should be cut down, so traction should be cut down. All this does not really happen. So what did we do before? We put our brake to emergency, and now we are actually draining the brake pipe that stayed miraculously at 70 psi. Aha! It does not work with releasing it right away. We have to wait for the cooldown. Let's see if that works. Keep it in emergency, put reverser to neutral, throttle to idle. Okay, also push the alerter button to reset it. But that alone doesn't do the trick. Let's keep it in emergency and wait for a bit. Wait for a minute or 90 seconds. Yep, and it's filling again. So resetting works. Push the alerter reset button. Put the handle into emergency. Wait for 60 or 90 seconds. Then you get your emergency reservoir back. The PCS indicator that did not come on in the first place should go off. And now I am applying power into the releasing brake so that we don't roll backwards. I'm not usually I would, or normally I would use the independent brake to do that, but since the independent brake does not work, it is only working on the lead locomotive, not on the 3 first locomotives as it is expected. I fire into the brakes, into the releasing brakes. Don't do that at home. It is not best practice. Apart from that, our rear end. Oh, we didn't see it on our end as well. Well, we fired into the neutral on top of everything. Okay, let's see if this is enough to get the train moving again as soon as the brakes are releasing on the cars. The locos have no brakes in the brake cylinders anymore. We're sitting in a 1.8 gradient. Back loco is not applying power. Only at the front we're applying power. Rear end is still not applying any power. And has brakes on for whatever reason. Is it initial reduction again? So Banking COMM is again doing weird tricks. Okay. Now the rear loco is applying power with the reverser in neutral. While my trailing front locomotive has the reverser in now. Super interesting behavior here. Okay, what we first need to do, we need to get our rear locomotives back with the Banking COMM to work with us. But it is not. The rear end is actually releasing the brakes again as soon as I try to activate, because it is at handle off now. Still my cutout brake valve is doing things with a brake pipe. Now even applying the emergency brake handle on my lead locomotive does not deplete the brake pipe completely. We have the weird situation that the cut-in brake valve is in emergency and the brake pipe is not drained. Here we have handle off. Here we have service. Okay. Now I've got my rear end back. It is applying power. But no longer my front locomotive. Brake pipe is filling, so the brakes are releasing. Power on the leading ones. No power at the rear. Power at the rear, power at the front, power in the middle. Brakes are still releasing, aren't they? Now this cut-out brake valve kept us on initial reduction. Now it is to release. Okay, I have power. The brakes are released throughout the train. Let's see if we are getting some forward motion. And we are getting this train actually rolling again. Or are we not? Not with the sender on. I'm only getting the locomotive rolling. What the cars are doing brake-wise, I have no idea. If they are still releasing, They should, because the brake pipe is full. But maybe it takes some time actually. Or they are not releasing at all. Obviously you wouldn't do this in real life because this burns more or less the engines here. We are on the limit. Brakes are released, brake pipe is full. All 5 locomotives are applying power. But we are still sitting here in the gradient with the train not moving. Play around with the so funny enough, we're not rolling backwards either, but we're not going forward. So our consist is more or less sitting there. Like a sitting duck. We're not getting wheel slips either. Now we're getting wheel slips now. All that we can achieve is to roll backwards a little. So the locomotive is pulling against the train, but the train isn't moving at all. What else can we do to maybe actuate the releasing of the brakes in the consist? Building the equalizing reservoir on with the cut-out brake valve does probably not do anything. Okay, without no throttle on, we're not even rolling backwards. We are sitting here in the gradients with a full brake pipe, with no brake cylinder pressure on all my locomotives, no power on, but we're not moving. At least we should be rolling backwards now. So I guess the train itself, being the cars, is holding us in place. Oha. There is no way to bail off the brakes on the consist here. Well, maybe let's try something stupid. Banking COMM off. Go to the rear locomotives. What I like to do now is to uncouple the train. What happens is that our locomotive rolls into the consist. The consist is still sitting in the gradient, not moving an inch. Aha, now we managed to release it. No? Somehow we just rolled backwards a bit. Well, all we can do is pull away from our sitting consist here. Or roll towards the consist. Now all cameras are at the front for whatever reason. Because we are uncoupled, obviously, yes. This makes sense. So we are only the 3 locomotives at the moment. Look at that! Another train come from behind and stopped. Just at our back. It ran literally in our back. Well, guys, ever heard of something like... Ever heard of something like absolute block? What are you doing here, train? We're sitting here, maybe we shouldn't be sitting here, but we are doing this. We're sitting here. Whoa. So why did you get into this? How did you get into this block at all? Front end again. But I'm afraid this consist will not move anymore. Not even with the other train pushing us uphill. Well, most interesting behavior. So, let's have the banking COMM off and see if we can operate this by hand. Those are on. Released. But it is not applying any. Okay. So what is happening now is that somehow our 3 locomotives at the front managed to get this train rolling again. We pulled away from the rear locomotives that we uncoupled, and the other train that came from behind is pushing us our helper pair. Because this helper pair is not driving on its own anymore. Can the independent brake hold the train in place, or are we rolling backwards again? We're rolling backwards, that means we have to use some train brakes. And now we're getting pushed by the train that came from behind, no? I wanted my helper pairs back on the train. My helper pair. Oh, and now we're derailed. Okay, very, very interesting stuff is happening here. But I think the initial question of you, Volvo, has been answered. If you're getting an application of that kind, it is most probably due to the alerter not being acknowledged, because you can't hear the alarm in the cab. You can hear it on the outside, but not in the cab for whatever reason. And then after the timer of 65 minutes or whatever seconds runs off, you get this penalty brake application that drains the equalizing reservoir on the leading locomotive. For whatever reason, not the brake pipe. And to release this, you would have to wait the cooldown, put the handle into emergency, and obviously reset the alerter and then release the brakes, and then you can actually go on. But the other stuff, what is happening with the weird behavior, I wanted the first thing to do, with the weird behavior of the Banking COMM script and what all those locomotives that are in the consist are doing to the brake pipe is a different story. But your initial question, I think we have found the reason. It is alerter being activated because you can't hear the alarm. So what I wanted to do to check, first thing to do is Banking COMM on, if that actually helps. doing things. Before anything else. Brake behavior is still weird. It went through the initial reduction here. Let's see what happened if we... Yeah. If the first thing that you do is click the Banking COMM, then it works. It still puts the brake valve to initial reduction, and it needs to be set to release even though it is cut out. It should not do anything. It can be done. And then with the alerter, let's drive for the sake of it with the external camera here. Okay, 22:44. Let's wait our 60 seconds or whatever. 44. Before we reset the alerter again. $50 seconds. $60. Okay. All you heard got beep 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 on the outside. And then with the alerter sound playing, we already got the penalty brake. Wait for a standstill. Throttle to idle, reversal to neutral. When we are standing, we can reset the alerter, sound comes off. Emergency setting. What now actually drains the brake pipe. Wait like 60 seconds, again it was 44. Hey, good evening, HAD Gaming 89. Nice to have you on the stream. And now let's see if we can reset our system again. And it actually works, the resetting. Thank you. Never ran an American service before. Looks interesting. Well, American services are great to run, especially the freight services with those trains with 5 locomotives or even more, thousands of tons. And the problem is that in this DLC here, the script for making the locos work together does not really work flawlessly. And also the alerter obviously has a problem. So you can run into a very weird behavior. And on my YouTube channel, one guy at Volvo asked about this, and I think we found the problem here. The problem is that you cannot hear the alerter sound in the cab. You can only hear it outside of the cab, but only a few beeps before it actually actuates the penalty brake. I just remember the film 777 when I see that type of loco. Unstoppable. Yeah, the thing is, if a train of that mass is actually running downhill, it gets unstoppable at a certain point of time, at a certain point of on the speed clock. And then all you can do is burn your brakes. Well, and obviously the American services with all the different signaling systems are a very, very broad field of interesting lore about signaling, about safety systems, in-cab signaling and so on. Where are you from, if you don't mind me asking? I'm from Germany. But unlike other players, I am interested in trains and stuff around the whole world. So American freight trains are an exotic and very interesting topic for me. And the Horseshoe Curve is a great DLC, but with some weird flaws in the locomotives and the scripting. Dortmund supporter. Not necessarily. Unless they play Bayern Munich, then I support Dortmund. But I'm not really into soccer anymore. Well, I think that was it for today. I thought I'd ask you. Well, I was at one time I was a strong supporter of the 1. FC Nürnberg. Thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate that very much. It was a bit of a special stream today because we were really looking into this one bug for now 1 hour and 40 minutes. I think we found a solution for it. And well, the thing is, never fail to handle your controls or push the alerter button even if you cannot hear the alarm, because at a certain time it will hit you and stop you. But at least you can get it rolling again, unless you get into a weird situation where the train consists, or the brakes on the cars will not release anymore. I do try and stream often, so hopefully catch one of my live streams. I will watch out for that. AJD Gaming 89. I will yeah, I will look you up and probably drop by. Thank you very much for the follow. Thank you for talking to me on the chat. And my next stream, I'm not sure if I will be back on Sunday this week or next week, but I will announce it. Have a good time. Take care. Bye bye. So you're fairly new to Twitch, so seeing what it's about. All right, well, same for me. I'm still not really at home with Twitch, but nevertheless, there are a couple of very great people on my channel who talk to me sometimes on the regular streams, and we have worked out together a lot of interesting lore and solutions for things. Maybe see you around. Have a good night. AJD Gaming 89. Bye bye.